that have sent the office, sent some of the office that wish to speak on bills. We're going to drop a sign-up sheet out here for the next few minutes while we're waiting on that 5-minute recess. If you wish to speak on any one of the bills, you can go ahead and sign up to do that. If you would do that for us. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. You're fine. All right, good afternoon, everyone. If I could, I'd like to go ahead and call the House Higher Education meeting to order this afternoon. I want to thank everybody for coming. I know we have a number of items on the agenda that we'll try to work through, and Chair's going to take it, just not use a lot of our time here, but take a brief moment of personal privilege in that my grandchildren may well be watching this, and I wanted to welcome Flat Stanley has come with us today to the meeting of the Higher Education Committee. My grandson Brooks sent him down, and he's been going around with me this week, and we've made some pictures in some places, and of course we all love our families and love our grandchildren, but it does make you know, I would like it to make us all stop and think today that if it's not the kids and our young people that we do this for, whatever it is, then we're probably doing it for the wrong reason. So we welcome Flat Stanley with us, and he'll be winging his way back to North Carolina later to do that. But we appreciate it. So again, we're busy today. We got a lot of stuff going on, but remember, Flat Stanley's in the room, so everybody's behaving today. Cell phones off, and let's keep it moving. Thank you very much. We have all these bills we'll be hearing today, and then we'll make a decision about what we'll do as we move forward. The first item we have is House Bill 646. House Bill 646 by Representative Glanton from the 75th. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I present this afternoon House Bill 646, and I have LC 490453. Is that correct? And so once again, Mr. Chairman, I know your committee is very busy this afternoon, so I will not take long. I will simply give you an overview of what the purpose of the bill is. And I was thinking there was going to be somebody here from the Urban League this afternoon, as well as a gentleman, the principal of Carver High School, which is it's a pilot P-TECH program in the state. Mr. Chairman, this is simply an opportunity for young people to, number one, get an education in addition to what they're already receiving. And number two, to clear up some of the shortages in employees throughout the industries. I believe we have over 17,000 job opportunities available right now if we had the folks to put in them. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to take for granted there are no questions, but certainly if there are questions at the discretion of the chair, I'd certainly be happy to answer those. But in a nutshell, the P-TECH program is Pathways in Technology. It's an early college, high school. And like most dual enrollment programs, this is a dual enrollment program that allows the student to not only complete high school, but to get an associate's degree at that time, to receive an associate's degree at that time. The difference between the traditional dual enrollment is that we're actually marrying the student up with a industry. For instance, IBM. We will have that student work with resources from IBM to not only complete their prerequisites, but to also possibly have a career with that particular industry. I have a lot of information, but I prefer to answer any particular questions if we have some, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you, Representative. To the members of the committee, I know this is our first look at it. It's been introduced, and I think we mentioned it at an earlier meeting. This is the first opportunity. I actually want to put the bill in your hands if you're with us today in person and online. You should have had it emailed to you along with a fiscal note. There is a fiscal expense that goes along with this, and it does go into the dual enrollment program. So I want to give the, after we take questions here, I want to give Representative Clanton some thoughts on how we might be able to take this, further, certainly if not this year, in the future, as it rolls into that. But are there questions for the gentleman before we move forward? I have Representative Clark, you're remotely. I don't see you in the room, so you must be remotely. Computer audio is on. You have the floor, Representative Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. And thank you very much to my colleague, Representative Clanton, for bringing this bill. I just had a couple of very technical questions, and so if you'll indulge me, on lines 150 through 152, it says that the program or the funding for the program is subject to annual appropriations. And my first question, and Mr. Chair, I only have three, so I hope I can ask all three. How would the lack of appropriations affect students that are currently enrolled in the program? So if we fall into a situation like we just had, or we had, back in 2010, like what is the consequence for students that are already enrolled in the program if it's not funded?
Well, with it being, thank you for the question, first of all, Representative Clark. With it being funded by available appropriations, it's similar to what we've gone through for the last couple of years. We have to find a way to limit the number of students that would initially go into the program. We don't want to happen what happened to us a couple of years back, where we allocated $12 million for dual enrollment, and by the time it was over, it was 126 million.
Well, right. Yeah. I'm going to help you out with this if I can, Representative Gladys, just in the interest of time. And we'll take the question under advisement, Representative Clark, but in reality, constitutionally, one legislature can't bind another. So, I mean, that's just, I think lawyers refer to it as a belt and suspenders language going in there. If we put that, that wasn't in the bill and the money was not appropriated for it, the money would not exist. I mean, so we can drill down to that question. You know, it's raised. So I'm let you had three. So
yeah. All right. I'll get to my next question. It's kind of similar, not really similar. So on line 185 through 191, it talks about the P-TECH college and them, being under scrutiny and making sure that they're only certifying eligible students. But on line 186, it says if they knowingly or through error, and when I see the word error, I think of unintentionally certify an ineligible student, that amount must be paid back, or or the commission can, I'm sorry, I'm trying to paraphrase right here. The commission may suspend that college from receiving payments if it fails to refund that money. And so I just want to point out that it sounds like if even by error, a single ineligible student gets certified, the P-TECH college would be suspended. What would happen to the other students that are currently enrolled?
Well, again, I'm going to just in the interest of time, because this is our first look at this. You're bringing, interesting point. I mean, perhaps the shall should turn into a may, and I'll give you a forethought of what I was going to tell the representative. I think we're going to assign a few members of a committee to work with he, and I believe Chairman Jones has worked with you on this, Chairman Todd Jones. So I'm going to suggest we take that also as a note, for the working group we'll put together to work on this. All right, you got one more.
All right. Well, if we're gonna, I'll add to the notes for the working group. So on lines 161 through 163, it says under no circumstances shall a P-TECH college require a P-TECH student participating and taking dual enrollment courses to pay for tuition fees and all those things. So again, we're in a situation where, and that's in the context of there is, the commission is not meeting all the funding requirements. Students are in this, it's not being funded. So the school can't require those dual enrollment kids to fund it, which is a good thing. Somebody's going to end up paying for it. So would this possibly lead to a tuition increase on non-P-TECH students? That was my last question. And if it's going to be a working group, just things to consider, very, very technical, minor details, but things that I thought should be under consideration.
Thank you very much. Number 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize, Representative, I'm not up to speed on this bill as probably I should be. But what's the difference in this and maybe what goes on in our college and career academies? Can you address that? I'm sort of thinking along those lines.
Well, the one thing that's, I don't know particularly what the career academies are doing in collaboration with various industries around the state.
Well, that's really part of their mission is technical school, high school, and industry, kind of matching those three. Excuse me for
No, I think you bring. The only reason I'm like moving us along, Chairman Dickey, is just with our schedule, and we are so early on. I think you bring up a good point. And I believe this is a bit more of a specialized program than that, geared specifically toward tech, reaching out straight, more toward a tech environment. But that's a good point.
Okay.
As we put that group, I could continue to get volunteers for the working group. And I'm serious. I mean, that's career, those academies very well. So you would be well suited to do that. Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Blanton, I just wanted to thank you for a good bill in which my understanding of this would really be to increase access for high school students to get skills, especially for high demand jobs. And I think this is certainly also a good bill that would help strengthen and accelerate the development of a skilled workforce. And so, Mr. Chairman, I just had a comment, but would also be happy to serve on any sort of working group to help move this bill forward.
More good volunteers. I can't.
Thank you.
Number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess we are all interested in this area. I was at dinner on last evening and we were talking about the kids that are not going to go on to technical school, but they may be getting some training. And this pre-tech program, I see as something that we really need to have in our state. And Mr. Chairman, I know you're rushing your meeting through, but I'll be happy to serve on this one as well. There is an interest, not only as far as I'm concerned, but even with some of the people that I had dinner with on last evening, and I wasn't familiar that this was coming before us. So I too would like to serve.
Representative Glenn, the way if I'm counting here, you only need 85 more and you can pass the House floor. Number 16.
Yeah.
Yes, Representative Glanton.
Yes.
I ditto what everybody has said. A very good bill. And I was talking with one of my straight A students who graduated from Douglas High School almost 2 years ago now. And she participated in that program at Georgia Tech. So I just assumed that she was, would be interested in attending Georgia Tech. But it was one problem. Her father, and I told the father, I said, one of these days, I'm going to give you a gold medal. The mom left when those kids were 3 and 4 years old. He has 3, and he raised those kids. And the 2 oldest one graduated from college. But what happened, Brittany finally told me, she says, no, I'm not going to Georgia Tech. I'm going to North Carolina A&T University. I was shocked. I said, well, that's out of state. She says, I understand that. And then I found out that my husband, who graduated from North Carolina A&T, was talking to Brittany while I was not around. And he got Brittany interested in North Carolina A&T. She told me, she says, I want to go to an HBCU. I talked with Brittany yesterday. She is working, saving her money so she could go to North Carolina A&T University. And I said, okay, you're determined. I'll help you. How much have you saved up? And when she told me, I almost fell out the chair. She has saved up half of her tuition. So I know she's determined. She's determined. But this is a good bill, and she was involved with that. She actually, while she was at Douglas, she took college courses. And she told me, she said, would you tell the author of the bill that Brittany said what they need to do is there should be, she calls it a transition period. In other words, they just threw them all over there and they weren't accustomed to it and they didn't know what to do. Brittany knew what to do, but she said some of her friends were lost. So if we could add, I don't even know if that's a part of the bill right now, but she said that's one of the criticisms that she has about the program, but it's a good bill.
Thank you, Representative. Well, Representative Glanton, I think we've got here, you got some synergy here. I will try to get with you tomorrow and when we're on the floor out there, and we'll see if we can get something that we can move forward on.
Well, Mr. Chairman, again, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to come before the committee this afternoon. I will admittedly that the bill needs some work, and it sounds like we got a lot of people willing to work.
Yes, sir.
So
you've been around here long enough. Very seldom do bills get introduced that don't need some things to go into. And I think that's that'll be helpful. And you have also the fiscal note to go along with it.
Yes, sir.
So
and I've also answered, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I've also answered the questions specifically that Representative Clark has. And if she would like to get with me later, I'll be more than happy to provide her with that information.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, in the interest of time, we're going to move on and into the agenda. I don't think we had any speakers on this. So Representative Bernal, did you have did you want to get on our work group as well?
I don't want to get on the work group, but thank you. I just wanted to make a comment. I was talking to a high school coordinator of counselors, and she mentioned to me, and I didn't know if anybody else has seen this or heard about this also, is that a lot of our kids are opting out of going to college. They're just going to work, or they're taking a year off and they're bypassing it. And so I told her I would mention it since, we were going to be in our committee meeting. So I don't know if that's something that this can help, or if there's some something for us to look at with our institutions to talk to our students in high school about why they don't want to go to college at this time.
And
Yes.
one last comment, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
yeah,
if I
yes,
may.
sir. Yes, ma'am. I think that's a good point, and I'll let Representative Glanton have the last word.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I will say that while it is federal law that you not ask the student its status, but this is for lawful folks that are in this country lawfully should be eligible for the program.
I understand. Just a bit like, yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on. We move on in the agenda this afternoon. Chairman Jaspers, you joined us. You're going to be here for the entire meeting. Do you mind if we do Chairman Werkheiser, since you're going to be with us? Chairman Werkheiser. Thank you, Representative Glanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Ladies and gentlemen, to help you with that, that's HB 1319. HB 1319. Oh, that kid that you said he's gonna be late. Hey, I had blood work this morning over there. I haven't eaten all day, so I may fall over here in a minute. Chairman, take all the time you need. Remember, we're on a schedule.
This will be as quick as you allow. This is House Bill 1319. The LC number you have, 280446, should be the original. There has been no changes to the bill. This simply is a LEO scholarship. So there's basically affects two different folks. Any eligible student who is either currently enrolled or pursuing a criminal justice degree or something similar to that, or any currently employed LEO, law enforcement or peace officer who has been employed for at least 2 years, city, county, state, any level. It allows them to apply for a Georgia LEO scholarship, and that would include $2,000 per year for a maximum of 4 years. So $8,000 maximum. It also has the phrase in there, contingent upon appropriations. I have been told by the speaker and Terry England is one of the co-signers that the money is there. And the rest of the bill just talks about the authority, and that authority is the Georgia Student Finance. And that's the bill.
Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, you have questions? Number 17. I'm sorry, I never know who's where. Number 17 is it?
Yes, sir.
You, Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Werkheiser, for the good bill. I think this looks good to me. The only question I have is whether or not there is a fiscal note, and how this would kind of play out. Is this kind of a one-time? I see on line 35 it says a maximum of a 4 award years in the sum of $2,000. Is there an estimated amount as to the cost and kind of how that looks like over the next 5 years?
I have not seen one, and I did not ask for a fiscal note. I think that's generally the role of the chair. But yeah, the maximum is 4 years, so $8,000 per student.
And that would be applied to any public or private university, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
anybody who generally is considered in Georgia, so any technical college or Georgia system college.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there further questions? I was let's see how I'm gonna put this. I have page 1, 2, and 3. I've just been informed that some of our packets are missing the back pages. Somehow the copier didn't, I guess, didn't do double-sided copying.
Where does it stop on the bill? Because I
Well,
think the
mean,
last part,
we have page 1 and page 3. It's not anything wrong with the bill.
Yeah.
It's fine. We're not taking action on the bill today, but I just wanted to let folks know we may find that with other bills that we will work on, the specific questions. We find ourselves today again with this idea. What I wanted to ask in terms of a question to answer, Representative Parks, we will request a fiscal note. The bill was just dropped recently, as you can tell by the bill number. So we will request a fiscal note before that. Then I would ask the author of the bill, if I'm not mistaken, new in this year's budget, criminal justice has been added to one of the fields. I'm looking at Mr. Peavy back there. I'm not sure I'm using the correct terminology, but it has been awarded as it will be fully funded in the TCSG. Correct. Can you come to the microphone if I can put you on the spot? I believe I just heard that in the higher ed appropriations committee. Is that correct?
Yes, it's been added as one of the Hope Career Grant fields.
Yeah. So
So
I would address that if the gentleman could address that in here, because we don't want to double. We want to double cover. We don't want you to be able to get the scholarship amount for this if you're being covered by the Hope Career Grant.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and we'll be happy to follow up and talk as needed on
So
that.
we can work with that. The only other suggestion I would have is for this, is there something service council about them applying, since we're helping them achieve this, degree, credential, that they would apply their services in the great state of Georgia, and we would want to educate them and send them to our friends over in Alabama or
That's a good
Florida.
thought.
So, but just something to think about there. Are there further questions, gentlemen, on this proposition, HB 1319?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Your line of questioning raised a question. Would the $8,000 be able to be used for housing, not just tuition? Because I think if it could be used for a broader category of needs for students, I think that would be helpful if possible.
I'm not sure because the bill doesn't specify that, but it is under the Georgia Student Finance Authority. So I would think that it would, whatever their normal parameters are. So I don't know if they
Normally their parameters, and do I see President Riley? Is she left? Anybody from Georgia Student Finance out there? They were in there earlier.
Yeah,
I
she was headed the other way.
believe their payments are made directly to the institution. So we probably have to address that if we wanted. That's a policy conversation to have, but and one that is not out of line.
Thank you.
Online, Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be brief. My first question in subsection C of, or I'll just go by lines 24 through 30, it talks about the actively employed peace officers being eligible for this. So this would require that they basically work full-time as a peace officer and attend school part-time in order to be eligible for the scholarship. Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
All right. And then my second question actually goes more to the appropriation question. I know we're going to get more information on that. But is there an anticipated limit on the number of scholarships, or is any and every peace officer that fits the eligible student criteria able to get this scholarship?
That I don't know. And since it's an unknown and new, I guess it'd be similar to when we add somebody to the Hope Scholarship, we have no idea who those numbers are.
Yeah, to answer your question, Representative, I believe that the gentleman is correct. There would be a large pool of people that would be potentially eligible, and that's what the fiscal note would give us an idea. It would be their educated analysis of statistics of people that were eligible, that might take advantage of, and then of course budgets are done for these particular scholarships on an annual basis and adjusted at mid-year much like the mid-year student counts are done in K through 12 education. If more people are in there and more money is available, but we'll take that question under advisement as well and look for a fiscal note. I don't see any further questions online or in person. I thank you for bringing the proposition, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
and then
thank y'all very much.
We'll move on. Is Representative Mitchell here? She was there. There you are. Yeah. Representative, I'm going to give you an intro while you're coming to the table, if you don't mind. Representative Rebecca Mitchell from the 106 has a proposition for us about the Hope GED, and she is aware, and I have asked her to present her thoughts and ideas for us today. She's aware that something is winging its way over from the Senate, that it may be a little bit more all encompassing with the governor's backing. So again, I want to turn that over to her and thank her for bringing, the thoughts to us. And, we will make sure that we merge the two together and as we do when things are in the same area. Representative.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you today. So the bill that I am discussing is LC 490436. And this was actually brought about by discussion with constituents last year. So this committee probably knows much better than everyone else, but the Hope GED scholarship right now is a $500 voucher that is available to folks within 2 years of having finished their GED. When folks came to me and said, what opportunities are there for me to continue my education when they were 25 and had a GED because that life circumstances had been the high school pathway that they could take, there weren't options open for them to fund that first year of education because they can't get another Hope or Zell because they do not have grades. And a $500 voucher, if you are supporting a family at that time, is a significant barrier relative to what everyone with a grant or scholarship had the ability to utilize in that first year of education. So the suggestion in House Bill 820 is to actually look at that first year of tuition and say we should fund the GED and high set individuals equivalently to the Hope individuals, because they do not have another option for that first year. Once they're in the second year, they can transition to a different Hope funding mechanism. So it looked both at increasing that $500 to be equivalent up to the amount that they would qualify for either a scholarship or a grant. It also extended from 2 years to 4 years availability. And allowed a voucher system and allowed a lottery system, sorry. So folks who are further out would also have that opportunity. If they said, this is the time in my life, my children are now in school, I have the ability now to pursue this additional higher education that I did not before. Now there is that funding that can help them get through that first year. It is also worth noting that if you pull right now, the number of folks who are using the Hope GED voucher, it is small. It is, I believe it was $800, 800 individuals in the last year that I have cited data, but we are actually graduating a lot of folks with either a Hope or a high set certificate every year. So most folks are not able to access this. In order to make it more possible for folks, making the funding amount more equivalent to a grant or a fellowship would give folks that opportunity, or scholarship, sorry. And I did actually reach out to folks at the technical college system and the funding folks, and they did see this as a program that is not sufficiently utilized at present. And I think that's why you are seeing that more comprehensive bill come over from the Senate. But I'm happy to show you what I had put together, and if any of that is useful, I'm delighted that it would contribute.
Yes, thank you for doing that. I would like very much for us to do that. I believe the bill is headed to the Senate floor tomorrow. I'm not positive. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I see somebody from TCSG shaking their head. So I think at this point, being as it's more comprehensive and a governor's initiative, He carries more weight than you and I. So we
That was
might-
very
we-
kindly said.
We might yield to him on the bill number, but I would
Yeah.
like very much to get you in touch with the authors of that bill as it comes over to make sure that if there's some improvements, some additions that we can do, in addition to what they're thinking, that it's a perfect time to do it. And you were very straightforward when we were talking about this, about you just want to get this done. And you don't care what bill number it happens on. And we've had some great success coming out of this committee with doing that. So I appreciate you introducing it to us today, and would like to involve you, as that bill comes over.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Do we have any questions for the gentlelady before we move forward? No, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for bringing that proposition. Representative Jaspers. You have two. Which one do you want to do today? It didn't say start out, Mr. Chairman. So which one? No, I'm just. Yeah, yes, sir. Do you want to do 1043 first?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see if we have both sides of the copy. Can folks can look and see if we have both sides? We do not. You're gonna have to be very thorough, as we're missing pages 2 and 4.
Oh,
Why don't we get?
I think I
somebody
can
to see
do
if
it.
we
I think I'll be fine, Chairman.
Can you get one and make some copies for us? Can Jennifer? Okay, can you print one out? Yeah, we're gonna get those and just, excuse me, just.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, can we do the other one? 757. Yeah, 751. And along with me, I have a
751.
guest, Les Schneider.
Yes, sir. Just to be clear, because I think I was talking without the mic on, we are going to do 751 from Chairman Jasper's first. 751, gentleman from the 11th.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And we're working off LC 280041, the original bill. There's been no changes. Mr. Chairman, we in this committee know the high cost of education and what a barrier it's been to many. And I know you as chairman has seen many, many different ideas coming forth to break down this barrier. I think during my tenure on this committee for the past 3 or 4 years or longer, I've seen 3 or 4 good ones that have really tried to do that. A few years ago, my friend Les Schneider brought this bill to me, and we commonly in my office call it Les's bill, as a possible solution. And it fits into my working as you go, earning your way through, working hard through school. And I, like many of you, us worked our way through school, ended up with no debt, but that's not the case now. And for one reason or another. So this bill is about debt. It's about a pathway to pay for school and fees. And it involves Georgia Student Finance to create a loan program. If students create an account, upon the qualifying, they'll pay $1,000 per year. It very strictly rules, and I think Les did a lot of thought on how this thing is put together. After graduation, they're paying 3% of their federal adjusted gross income. It lasts 15 years. I think it's very tolerable. I've asked my kids if they thought it would be, and they all were yay. It's offered to both public and private, and which is maybe a little different. It requires their buy-in. They're going to have to, it requires that 1% of all the incoming freshmen be able to participate. Of course, there's a lot of details. Of course, when you're talking money, we really get into details. And I like it. It puts schools and students together to succeed in jobs that pay and help pay back their loans. It's a reasonable proposition. And Mr. Chairman, mind, I'd love Les, if you'd like to add some comments.
Thank you. Chairman Martin, members of the committee, my name is Les Schneider, and I've worked down here on a lot of different issues, and oftentimes I take on issues that I think are good for the state and without a client, and this is one of them. Let me just share some facts with you. Federally held student loan debt in this country is at $1.7 trillion. That's more than the nation's auto loan debt. Georgia borrowers account for $66 billion of that 1.7 trillion. The average loan debt in Georgia is $40,000. We are only behind Washington, D.C. and Maryland in terms of how much debt our students absorb. In 1972 to 75, I went to Emory Law School and I paid $2,100 a year. Today, you go to Emory, it's $75,000. House Bill 751 is an interesting and intriguing way to begin to address this issue. Because of the cost of going to school and other factors, there are a lot of empty seats in a lot of our colleges and universities in this state, both public and private. This proposition is a pay as you earn. We are not asking anybody to give state money to pay for anything. We're asking, as Representative Jaspers indicate, for a path that somebody who has intelligence, who gets into school on their own merits, has a way to pay for that education without being so burdened with debt that they can't buy anything else after that and worry about how am I ever going to pay these student loans. And I'll go through certain parts of the bill, but let me tell you what this bill does. You get into a school on your own merits, both public or private. You are eligible as a recipient for the Pell Grant. We're starting small. We're asking the public universities to reserve 1% of their seats for those students. And we are telling the privates, you can be part of this program. And what you are going to do is you as a student is going to pay $1,000 a year while you're in school. And then you make a deal with the state. And the deal is 3% of your adjusted gross income for the next 15 years, you're going to pay that. So if you end up being a brain surgeon and you're making $500,000 a year, you'll take 3% of that and pay it back. If you want to be a school teacher and you're going to make between $50,000 to $100,000 during the next 15 years, we're asking for $1,500 or $3,000 a year. We are giving people the chance to perhaps put a career in something they really want to do, and yet they're not stopped because, gee, I can't be a teacher because I got $300,000 worth of debt. I got to go into finance or, invent the next, genius operation. So we are basically saying there may be future doctors, lawyers, plumbers, business people that can go to school, and there's a path for them to pay for that. And instead of having so much debt and affecting your credit rating so badly, you're making a 3% commitment to be able to pay back to the school what you owe. Most of the universities in this state are either state or nonprofit institutions. There are a few for-profit institutions. Part of being a nonprofit institution is having flexibility and giving back to the people of this state. And all we're asking for in this bill is to allow somebody with talent who can get in on their own merits to simply be allowed to have, you make a certain amount of payment down and you make the rest of the payment as you earn money in your life. And whether it's $50,000 a year, 100 or 150,000, you make that deal to pay that 3% off. That is the high points of the bill. It has some detail to it that gives an alternative way to pay back, as you can see in lines 107 to 113. But the essence of the bill is to make school more affordable. I was fortunate enough to be able to afford tuitions to send my children to school, and they didn't have to have any debt when they got out. I mean, as a parent, I was very happy. It also, when they all got out of school, it was the biggest pay raise I ever got in my life. But at the end of the day, this is important because there are parents who want to help their children, but they cannot afford this level of tuition. And if we can attract 500 to 1,000 people more a year who want to go to school and we give them a path, how do we not give this a try?
Let me ask you a couple of
Yes, sir.
questions before we get, because we are on a time
I
frame. do
understand.
have
I
some questions.
appreciate it.
First of all, you said we want to make school more affordable. How does this lower the cost of school?
This lowers the cost because what happens is that we are basing it on the $1,000 a year that
No,
they're
you're,
paying.
you're talking about how much is going to get paid back. You
Right.
said we're going to lower the cost of school. Where in this
We-
bill is tuition lowered?
It's lowered because if somebody only makes $50,000 a year,
That's how much they pay back. How are we
their
lowering the cost of
tuition-
providing the education?
because their tuition that they in essence would pay would be that 3,000 times 15, which would be 45,000 plus the 4,000 that they paid initially. So that college education in that case would be approximately $50,000.
But that's not what it costs. That's what they're paying, but that's not what it costs.
Well, the same state supplement that exists for people who are paying according to whatever the tuition schedule is now, the state is still going to kick in that same amount of money at a public institution. And for a private institution, they will pay according to this scheme, and they will fill up a seat perhaps that they wouldn't have filled up before. So at the end of the day, we are making it more affordable for people to go to school. We're making it more possible for a segment of our society who would normally perhaps not be able to afford to go.
Well, I'm not going to, you and I can spend some time together. We've
Yes.
done that before and I appreciate it. But I am truly trying to understand this. The university system is funded on a formula basis plus tuition.
Yes.
You're suggesting that they admit a student to, you pick a university system component and they get $1,000 a semester. from that student.
Initially, $1,000 a year. They get
$1,000 a year,
$1,000 a year.
$500 a semester.
Whatever,
Okay,
yeah,
even less.
Yes,
So if they do that, the cost of operating that university doesn't go down. So the money has to come from somewhere, because a student was paying the full either in-state or out-of-state tuition.
Mhm.
Now they're only getting $1,000 a year. So at the University of Georgia, instead of getting $12,000 or $18,000, they're going to get 1,000. Where does that $17,000 come from?
in the next 15 years, they're going to be getting, they're getting 3%.
We have to do, I mean, I'm putting, I usually do this in the office. I'm doing it
Okay.
here today because I'm going to be brief, because I want you to think about it, because we're running on a
Sure.
short time frame to
I
get this done. But I understand where you're getting it down the road,
Mhm.
but somebody's got to pay the professor and the folks in the air conditioner and the things that are going on at the university system. And if they could lower the cost of doing that, and then Ms. McCartney and the regents aren't doing that for us today, then we need to have a discussion. I think Chairman Knight he's online here. He probably will talk to him. So I see what you're saying, but I don't see how this is nothing more than a cost shift from these students who won't pay as much to some students somewhere that are going to pay more.
I would.
It's a zero-sum game.
I would respectfully disagree, because I believe what you may find is that, first of all, we're only talking about 1% of the total number of the student body, number one. Number two, we are also addressing the fact that there will be monies coming in over a 15-year period that may very well exceed what those students would pay if they paid the regular amount. And and again, if there are empty seats in the university system and there are schools that clearly have more capacity, we could be adding those students as an ancillary cost. When the airplane leaves the ground and there's an empty seat, that airline never gets to make any money on that seat.
But I understood you to say that you want the university system to set aside 1% of their enrollment to do it. When you have people that are getting turned away at our research institutions, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, and the medical school, in some programs in TCSG, and you're telling me we're going to turn some students away so that someone else has a better cost. Let's take that off.
Sure.
We be happy to do that. Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Jaspers. Les, so I had a few questions, if I may, real quick. One, I am a little concerned about this 3% simple interest over a 15-year period of time. I know the public service loan forgiveness program in which I'm involved would eliminate all of my student debt for law school after 10 years. So why that 15-year period of time? Just because I feel that could not necessarily, that could potentially add to the burden of student loan debt if this is permitted to be paid over a 15-year period of time. So could you provide more detail as to the
Sure.
interest in the time period?
If you're talking about lines 100 to 106, that's the normal procedure whereby you would simply only have to pay 3% of your adjusted gross income every year. Once you pay that money plus the $1,000 you have paid before, you're done. There is no interest. The 3% that you referred to is in lines 107 through 124, which gives 107 to 113, which gives you an alternative method if you want to do that. But if you don't want to do that, you simply will pay 3% of your adjusted gross income every year.
So another question I had is, I know there's been a lot of debate in this body about needs-based scholarship for undergrad. If that was in place, because I think this is an interesting idea, but what if this pay education program was limited more to graduate programs as opposed to undergraduate or TCSG, given that we have high career demands that are fully covered by the Hope Grant?
This again is a supplement to any other program that we have in this state. Clearly, if someone is a Zell Miller scholar and is able to get the full freight done, but there are a number of C students, C+ students, maybe B- students who wouldn't get the Zell Miller scholarship, but they would get another one. And this may be another method which they can utilize to be able to go to school. And I think somebody on this side gave the example of the father who has 3 children, and probably all those children are eligible for Pell. Those children could use this way, and whether they want to be a teacher or a physicist or a brain surgeon, they have a path to get an education without having crumbling debt, that what I talked about earlier.
Thank you.
Representative Clark.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm here. Thank you for, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do think this is an interesting idea. I do share some of the chair's concerns about the who is paying for this, because there's still money, that the tuition is still there, and someone's got to pay for it. And my biggest concern is that if we're asking our universities to take a hit in one place, that it'll just be added in another. But I actually wanted to talk about the requirements for participating in the program, specifically lines 91 through 98. And I just wanted to look into, number one, why those students that need remedial courses would not be able to take part in this. I would say that just because you're in remedial courses doesn't mean you're not on a path to do great things. And I don't think that they should be, excluded. But then my second thing is the obtaining a bachelor's degree within 4 years or a professional degree within 5 years. While that is the traditional path for a lot of students, I'm a professor at a university, and I can tell you there are a lot of students that have certain life things come up that might preclude them from graduating in exactly 4 years. And what would happen, and I'm not really sure in this bill what happens to those students if they get into that 5th year of school. Like what's the next step for them as far as how they pay back their loans, or are they going to be on the hook for the full tuition for that 5th year? So those would be my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Jaspers, for bringing this bill. It's a really interesting concept. I have a question just to better understand what the concept is. So if I understand it correctly, this is not a bill where there is an actual loan amount. It is basically the pay as you earn program, and you pay 3% for a maximum of 15 years. Regardless of what. This is, I think, where come out that you might actually, the university system might actually get higher earnings, but there's also risk involved. What if the earnings are rather low over the time? So I agree that there might be an idea to find like a cap, because one could calculate what the net present value of education is based on the 15-year time frame, and then really see whether there needs to be a minimum or not that the university system needs to retrieve to get their costs retrieved. So I just want to make clear, so there is no actual loan amount in what you're talking about. It is more like an annuity that the student has to pay when they are leaving the university and are employed.
That is correct. And that is one of the key things, that you're not under a crushing debt service. You are picking the career that you're going to go into, and some careers pay more than others, but this allows us to have a more educated state with students who don't make a career decision simply because they have to pay back a severe debt.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Reverend. There are no other questions. I know we've got to move on to this. So let me give you a couple more things to work out.
Sure.
Here. Tell you, because interesting concept. Okay, I'm going to wax a little philosophical here. Interesting concept. But the 3% of AGI as a payback mechanism is severely flawed. To use your example, if you have a doctor and he has a practice, he or she has a practice, adjusted gross income comes to after your expenses. So if you're a doctor and you have a practice that makes $500,000 a year, you just hire a family member to be your office manager and pay them $499 at the end of the year. You have an adjusted gross income of $1,000, and you send the state $30 for 15 years. And then I mean, it can, I'm just telling you, I see what you're doing here, but it can be all sorts of games, and it just can. I mean, people play with adjusted gross income all the time. The other thing it does is it puts no focus on the cost of an education. Basically, you could go to a private for-profit college. I mean, I guess it has to be in Georgia. It couldn't be, out of state, but you go to the most expensive private nonprofit college and it run up $150,000 or $300,000 worth of education, and decide you want to go into a career that pays virtually none. It could go into a nonprofit career and paying nothing, and nobody's going to pay for that. I mean, those are both extreme examples, but those are things that we have to take into. So interesting concept, but work on some stuff, and come by and see us. I'll get you in touch with some other folks on the committee. I know you have I think at least a committee member or so that has signed on your bill besides Chairman Jasper. So we'll work with you.
Well, I really appreciate your time and your consideration and your questions. And I do think this can address it, and I'm happy to.
Yeah, your heart's in the right place. We'll work on the details.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Chairman Jaspers, you now have 10, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Les.
Yeah. And Les, we had you down for a speaker on this. I'm assuming that was it. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to be clear. Chairman Jaspers, you got 1043.
Okay. Thank you, members, for hearing that. Les's passion for students and people is well known. Okay. I've had the pleasure of being the co-chairman of the Rural Development Council for a few years, along with Sam Watson, and before him, Terry England and Jay Powell. And during our Rural Development Council meetings in the last year, and especially maybe the year before too, it became there's a big issue in teaching at TCSG. And that's keeping and hiring, or hiring and keeping is a better way, certain instructors. It's really most evident at the level where they need to pay a qualified teacher in a very competitive situation, whether it be nursing, welding, data. There's just so many of them, that the state pay rate is insufficient to keep them and sometimes even hire them. And so what's happened, you have turnover, you have no teacher, and this has been the case in some areas because then you will have no program. And though they really try to move people around and fit the needs where they need them, and TCSG puts a lot of effort in making this happen. And the community I live in, this has been an issue a time or two. So like most issues with the Rural Development Council, we hear all this stuff over the period of a couple of days, and then everybody looks at each other in the room and says, okay, what do we do about this? So House Bill 1043 is our attempt to find a workable solution to this issue. You'll say, well, why can't, if there's an industry in that community, can they just not write the tech school a check and supplement their pay? Well, we find that they can't do that. So we had to think about it. We all put our heads together with Legislative Council, and what you have in your hands is our thoughts on this. So we think of public-private partnership that creates a way to do this across the state. And so what the bill really does, in essence, it creates a board of trustees. The governor appoints 5, the Senate by 3, and Speaker 3. They create an advisory committee based on 2 per congressional district. Now, this is creating a large group, but just think, they've got to go across the state. Congressional districts in some areas are huge to determine what funding needs are out there. No TCSG will help them, but they've also got to raise the money. And that's the reason for so many. Throughout the bill, it's got hows and whats, but in the end, it's to provide a grant to TCSG to give them the freedom to hire who they need in these high needs worlds. You look at line 82, it's the responsibilities like any normal board. They're going to manage it. They'll have to hire people to do that. They'll have to fund those key disciplines and as they're needed with the work of economic development. There's some criteria in here that's really got to be met before it kicks in. They've got to raise $50,000 in private donors, $50,000 from public. This does not start until they meet that need. And then unlike any bill probably that we have, if they don't do it, it ends. It stops. Because we're of the opinion that if the need is there, if a aircraft person needs airframe people, they're going to put the money into it to get it there, that it'll fund it. It'll be an easily met thing. And, economic development is very important to all this. They work with TCSG very well. And it's just an idea. Hopefully that you'll agree that we think it's a good idea and we can move on with it. I've got a couple of people who want to speak to it, from TCSG. Asked Mark Peavy to say a word if he would, and also from the Metro Chamber, Tim Carroll. Mr. Chairman, if we can do that.
I'll keep it really brief. We love the idea, quite frankly. Chairman Jaspers has already articulated the challenge that we face all across the state, particularly in some of our rural communities where we're looking, especially in some of the newer higher end programs, cybersecurity, high-end manufacturing, other types of STEM-related programs, where we do absolutely have a challenge in finding instructors who are willing to step out of the private sector in many of these higher paying jobs and be able to come teach our students. And so any support we can get to help solve that issue, we would be much appreciated. And certainly it's a known challenge that we've got. So we're appreciative of the effort here and would be happy to partner with this, be the public side of this public-private partnership as it moves forward. So.
Ask if I can, Mr. Peavy, would this go up and include, let's just say a section of widget building, at a particular technical school was full, the instruction staff we had at that technical school, was full. The sections were full. That if you had an industry in that area that had need for more folks, and you had a roof, you had square footage for it, could they in fact just fund an instructor to teach a second section under your roof? I mean, this would allow up to something completely like that, not just as the chairman stated, to augment the salary to keep somebody in house, but could in fact create a second segment, because that might not be an ongoing thing, an ongoing need that we would add a state fully funded instructor you know,
Yes,
in a
Mr. Chairman,
continuation?
that's a great
This would
question.
allow you to do that as well.
We already have
Be
places where
nimble.
that happens, but this gives us a further opportunity to do that. We have places that will happen. This just gives a vehicle to be able to make it a little bit easier to do that. So
That's right.
absolutely, I think nursing programs are a great example. We're limited in terms of how many students from a nursing perspective that a given instructor can teach. And oftentimes we can't add another cohort because we don't have the dollars to add that full-time instructor, an additional instructor. So this would be a great vehicle. And that's just one example of how that might happen. So,
And this, you could perhaps use this for somebody in the school to further reach out to find clinicals for a nursing cohort.
I think there's
right?
a number of
If you needed
opportunities.
additional
yes, sir.
person power, if you will, to find those clinicals, you could augment the salary or the position for a short time.
Yeah,
to get over the hump.
oftentimes that's exactly what we need to do is be able to either spread that one person a little bit thinner
Right.
or find a way to keep that person who has an opportunity to go make lots more money out in the private sector. But a little extra would help keep them teaching because that's really what they
I'm going
want
to
to
ask you a
do.
pointed question here that I think probably was one of the things Chairman Jasper says, but given the recent health, the pandemic issues, isn't it true that we've lost some pretty senior instructors in the field of nursing because they're getting paid ridiculous? I won't say ridiculous, but extreme sums of money to come back into the practice of nursing. And haven't we lost some instructors because of that?
If I get the phrase right, I believe the senator knows of what he speaks. Is that the right
Yeah.
phrase?
Well,
Representative, I'm sorry.
Don't
but
demote
yes,
me
sir.
right here in front of everybody, but
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. We that is one of the challenges we've absolutely seen in the nursing sector, and the healthcare field as a whole.
right.
Is that as those shortages have propped up out there, there's lots more dollars floating around that'll pull them out of a teaching position, and this would
sir.
help in that instance.
Yes, sir. Chairman Jobs, you had, we had somebody, I know we've got some questions, but I'm going to go to our speakers here. Tim, are you online? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Since they came here, this was some of the speakers that had asked to be recognized in written remarks. So, yes, sir.
It's all good. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tim Carroll. I'm with the Metro Atlanta Chamber. I want to thank Chairman Jasper for bringing this bill. The Chamber over the past 6 or 7 years has published a number of research reports looking at the supply and demand gap for the certifications and degrees conferred by our institutions, and then demand on the industry side for those certifications and degrees. And one common recommendation from all of those reports was the ability to draw more industry professionals into the classroom. And we believe that this legislation will get us way down the road into making that a reality and a possibility. So would ask for your favorable consideration and thank Chairman Jaspers for bringing the bill.
Thank you, Tim. We have a couple of questions. Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Jaspers, for the bill. I did have a few questions. One, I know you mentioned how paying our TCSG instructors was the primary purpose of this bill, perhaps. Simple question, but through the budget, why are we not able to do that directly through state funds?
Well, I certainly can't answer that question. I think we're the limit on that. I think we as members could probably push for higher levels of funding for TCSG, but that's really on our shoulders.
All right. One more question, if I may, Mr. Chair. So I did see online 79, and it seems in terms of the purpose of this endowment, it would be broader than just for purposes of providing grants to Technical College System of Georgia schools. Is there any other reason why, for example, we would want to? I think I'm just trying to understand exactly kind of what this would allow for that we can't already do through the state budget, and what colleges like Gwinnett Tech that partner with Mercedes-Benz did in building on an excellent program out in Gwinnett County.
Sure. And I think when I look at it too, that did happen, and there's other great, but that's all across our state. This really makes it happen across Georgia, and being able to do nothing as big and grand as what you're talking about there, and others that are doing the same thing. But and I think when the Rural Development Council heard this, we are looking at rural Georgia, not specifically where you are, but would really help us meet the needs of students trying to get a leg up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Online, Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have two very quick questions. The first question is in lines 29 through 34, when you talk about the appointments to the board, it gives the appointments to the governor and the lieutenant governor and the speaker of the house. And one of my questions is, when exactly would those appointments take place? Because if we start in this year, I could see a potential where a governor could make these appointments and then that not be the governor literally 2 months later. And that's just a hypothetical. And also, so that's my first question. And the same with the lieutenant governor. For example, our lieutenant governor has announced that he does not plan to run for re-election. So would they make this appointment and then for the next 4 years, those appointees are on the board? And then 4 years later, when we're appointing again, we're in the same situation where the outgoing governor and lieutenant governor are potentially making these appointments. And then my second, I'll just ask both.
Let's answer one at a time.
Okay, I was trying to get it in before Chairman Martin cut me
Chairman
off.
Martin, maybe he'll give us, I understand what you're saying, ma'am, but I guess what I've seen in my career in education, especially in the Capitol, is that when appointments are made, they're made for impact. They're made for the ability of that person to be able to help TCSG, USG, student finance, the Board of Regents, all of them for impact, what they can bring to the table to make it better for Georgians to do their job. So who's doing the appointment either now or 2 years from now? I think, well, hopefully we all rise above that and pick people who can do the job.
Great. Look, if you had something further, Representative Loud, but I'm going to remind everybody we have 40 minutes left, and a number of people that have an interest in HR 932. So
It's a very quick question.
yes, ma'am.
The second question is just in the last part of the bill, lines 119 through 128, we establish a floor of 50,000. Otherwise, this thing goes, kaput, and we just don't do it anymore. Based on the amount that instructors are paid and us trying to retain instructors, do you think that 50,000 is enough to accomplish the goal that we're trying to accomplish?
Well, that's just a start number. We hope that's easy to attain, and then gracious more is in there, but that's just a kickoff number, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Number 24.
I have to agree with what just has been said about the appointments. I wish there was some other way that appointments could be made. I know they come through the governor, the lieutenant governor, or the speaker of the house. But I'm thinking of higher education, when universities, alums have recommended people to serve on the Board of Regents and what have you. And of course, it may or may not happen. You can see the same thing happening here. Are we getting the right people? You would think that they will think about what is happening. So that particular part of this bill, I do have some concern about. And I don't know, maybe it needs to be revisited.
Well, I think that, the president of the Senate will be representative of the Senate. That's what this bill asks for. And the speaker certainly representative of who we are a part of. And I've noticed and observed over the years, they're fair and they do what's best for Georgia, and they pick, and they do like just you suggested. They're going to take recommendations from you, from me, from Chairman Martin, whoever.
But to no
And
avail.
Well,
no, I think.
All right, I'm gonna rail us in here. We can talk about this when if we get the bill back for and we get a motion, we can debate what we want to do about those measures. But I will say this, and then I've got 2 more speakers we got to go. But I will say on this appointment, just looking at it, Mr. Chairman, if you're one of the people that are asking for this appointment, be careful what you ask for. You may get it, because this is not what you say, an appointment for show.
No.
These people and the 30, I think is it 30 additional people to work on the advisory committee. It's going to be a working group, not a not a group. So I would say that to be careful what you ask for. Representative Metz, you're standing between us and 972. So, or 932.
I'll be brief, trust me. I love the idea. I think it's great. But you mentioned several places in the bill, professionals in high demand courses. Have you actually, could you just speak a little about those high demand courses, or maybe that's still in the making?
Well, no, I think we have very clearly identified, maybe someone could perfect it for me. It's 14 or 15 high demand, jobs that we really pay the premium for at TCSG. I think this will be identified from TCSG. They're going to know that they can't get, as Chairman said, a nursing instructor, a welding instructor in wherever in Georgia. They're part of this. They'll identify where they're at.
Okay.
To do that.
And on the last page, line 110, to develop a measurement consistent with state national standards concerning the impact of the endowment on education. If you decide that you're going to do a little more work on that, I'd love to work with you.
And I think
Measurement
they're
and
gonna say,
evaluation.
did they?
Okay.
Have people been hired? Did it work? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chairman Jaspers, thank you much for bringing this, and we'll talk to you on the floor tomorrow about how we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We always, by the way, this was hearing only for everything, so you have it before you. All right, we're going to move forward in the agenda. We have a number of people that want to speak to our last proposition. Representative Chairman Cantrell. Ladies and gentlemen, we have before us HB 932. The chairman has brought us a proposition, dealing with folks that your definition, but folks that find their way into the United States through a proper process because of a variety of reasons. I have gotten some communications on this that are passionate on both sides. I want to stress today, as I've done before, we're talking about this proposition as it relates to in-state tuition. That's the policy matter before us. We are not, the House Higher Education Committee is not tasked with dealing with the United States immigration laws or the laws relating to refugees in the United States of America. We're not going to have that conversation. Take that up with your friends in Washington or here on a different day if there's something. So just want to ask everybody to do that. Myself and my friend Flat Stanley is still looking for everybody to have a good and positive discussion. Chairman Cantrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I want to start by just telling you what this bill does not do. It does not grant in-state tuition to someone who would not otherwise receive it. All it does is it removes the year waiting period for those who have been assigned to live in our state. Last summer, I was privileged to chair a study committee on maximizing global talent in our state. We were looking at how do we help Georgia continue to be a welcoming state, a state where people can come and enjoy living here, find a good job, own a business, raise their families, get educated, all of these things. We had 3 different meetings across the state. And one of the common denominators that came up at every meeting was education. That's a hurdle for a lot of the refugee community, particularly. And so we began to, after we were done and we had our report, I began to look at, what was the most common concern that came out of the committee that we could address. And this is the bill, HB 932. Basically what it would do, it would allow those who are here under refugee or SIV status or humanitarian parole from Afghanistan, the way our federal government leaders botched that evacuation so badly that people were brought over here without the proper paperwork, but they're assigned to live in our state. And we want to make sure we take care of them. So it would give folks like that immediate residents in our state only for the purpose of in-state tuition. Most of these folks have already been through an 18-month to 3-year process.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you to suspend for just a second?
Sure.
I apologize. I will only be away a moment, but I've been called down to present a bill and I did not know anything about it. I would have asked him to schedule it. I'm going to turn it over. The remaining officers of the committee aren't in the room today. So I'm going to turn it over to the past chairman of higher ed to do this until I get back. My sincere apologies. I'll be back straight away.
Thank you, Mr. New Chairman.
Yes, sir. Take off.
That's pretty much the bill. Remember that the refugees are assigned to live in Georgia. SIVs are special immigrant visas. These were granted to people who worked with our military, primarily in Afghanistan. They were translators, other things like that. And then you have these folks who are here on humanitarian probation because in the fog of that evacuation, there were folks put on airplanes and brought all over, taken all over the place. And some of them have been assigned to live in our state. So I will say this, our church, years ago, I began to go to Clarkston because our church had some ministry over there, do some sports ministries. And I began to meet folks in the refugee community and became very appreciative of what's going on there, appreciative of the work ethic, appreciative of folks that want to live the American dream. And that's what these folks want. They want to be Americans and they want to live the dream. And I just feel like, the federal government has given us a big old lemon and we're trying to make lemonade as best we can. And this is just how it is. This is the reality of the situation. These folks are here, they're here lawfully, and we should not put up artificial hurdles to them getting educated, finding good jobs, owning businesses, and becoming productive members of our society. We want to be taxpayers too, right? We want them to contribute to our great state. They know Georgia is a great place to live, work, and raise a family, and we want to give them every opportunity to reach their full potential. And that's the goal behind HB 932.
Thanks, sir. We'll have a few committee members have the questions for you. We'll start off with Ms. Marie Metz. Oops.
It's a very good bill.
There you go.
As a matter of fact, my church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, we've been involved with this for many, many years, as you know. And I love it. I love the bill. And I know my grandkids who were born in Central America would love this bill. Thank you.
That's my kind of question. Let's keep those going.
You like softballs. Representative Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Cantrell, having been involved with the refugee community for years, this is a great bill. I think it's a common sense way to address some economic development concerns as well, to make sure that we've got residents who are contributing to our economy at their full potential. I've gotten a lot of emails about this, mostly in support of the bill, but a few that are detractors that I think perhaps have misconstrued what the bill is about. So just on the record, I wanted to make sure I understood this correctly. All we are doing is saying for a group of people who have had no land to call home, usually for a few years, who are now living in Georgia, we are saying you are Georgians and you have in-state tuition just like your neighbors. We're not giving away scholarships. This is not free tuition. This is not a Hope Scholarship. We're simply saying, like any other Georgian, you have access to in-state tuition.
With the one exception is that we are waiving the year that they have to, because they've already been through a 18 months to 3 months relocation process.
And that seems only fair. They've really had no home for the prior year.
Correct.
So
The only state they've known is Georgia.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Likewise, Representative Cantrell, thank you for the bill. And just for purposes of clarification, you would say that 12-month waiting period that currently exists is arbitrary and necessary for purposes of these folks who would otherwise be able to
For these
receive?
folks, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for folks moving from another state, it makes sense.
Thank you.
Representative Washburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make the praise for this bill bipartisan. Thank you for bringing it. It's an excellent bill. And certainly in my mind, it is the right thing to do for these people. And the added benefit is, it's not only the right thing, it's a good thing for Georgia, and it makes sense.
Absolutely.
In many ways. And
One of the things I
just-
didn't mention, Representative Washburn, is that we've got more jobs in Georgia than we got people. And this is one of the ways we can address that concern.
Yeah. Well, it's an excellent bill, and I hope we get a chance to vote yes on it soon.
Thank
But
you.
I wanted to thank you, Chairman Cantrell, for bringing it.
Thank you. Oops. We have Representative Holcomb online.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Cantrell, I want to add my voice to those that are publicly commending you on this. I deployed in the fall of 2001 at the start of the operation, and the role that these individuals played at great risk to themselves and to their families. It's something that made an incredible difference to everybody who deployed for that conflict over the last 20 years. And so I'm fully supportive of what you're doing. I want to thank you publicly for championing this cause, and I really hope that it can pass, because it will make a world of good in a situation that really every thought that I have about Afghanistan is one of pain and sorrow. And so to the extent that we can change that and advance lives in a positive direction, I think that's a worthy and noble cause. And again, I'm fully supportive. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your service, Representative Holcomb.
See, Representative Matiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to piggyback on Representative Holcomb. Is it not true that a lot of our refugees out of Afghanistan were great help to our military in not only language barriers, but geography, everything? So I'm very proud that some of them made it out with their skin.
Mhm.
And you and I worked on trying to get some people out that
Yeah, we did.
God knows if they ever really did. I'm hoping that your family did. I never did find out
Yeah, they did.
what happened to ours. I think they went to Germany, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ma'am, Representative Jackson.
Kudos.
Oh, thank you,
I
ma'am.
just think that this is one of the best bills that I've seen. And I'm hoping that all of us will help to pass it, because this could be us. It could be us. And the sacrifices that were made by the people. And I am definitely in agreement with this wonderful bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other committee members have comment or question? I see none. We'll move over to the guest speakers. I kind of calculated, we've got what we figured 13, 14. We've got how many minutes, Mr. Chairman?
13, 14.
You got a couple of minutes each, right? Chairman can do whatever he wants, but
Chairman Martin, if I may, could I just ask this committee to be as enthusiastic about all my bills as they are this one? Would that be fair?
I wasn't here.
Oh, it was enthusiastic, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome to stay there if you like, because I'm going to call on the speakers and we'll let them go to the podium. I will. I'm going to get right to it, but keep in mind that we do have until 3:00. We get 20 minutes. Just a minute or two if you can. Darlene Lynch, Ms. Lynch.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee, and thank you, Representative Cantrell. I'm here on behalf of the big partnership, Business and Immigration for Georgia. We have been working with Representative Cantrell and the Bipartisan Study Committee to find innovative ways to maximize this deep pool of talent that we have in Georgia. Today, 1 in 10 Georgians is foreign born, more than 1 million people. And we are really grateful today that every member of the Global Talent Study Committee, Republicans and Democrats, came together to sponsor HB 932. HB 932 is the first bill arising out of the Global Talent Study Committee to help us build Georgia's workforce of the future. For these students, for refugees, for those who supported our US military overseas, Georgia is the only state they have ever called home. For nearly 50 years, Georgia has extended a lifeline to people forced to flee persecution and allies who put their lives on the line for our soldiers. And it's a proud tradition. This year, Georgia is welcoming up to 2,000 refugees from around the world and 2,000 Afghan allies. Many are college ready. More than 40% have completed their high school or some of their college educations, and many have a level of English that makes them ready to jump right back into school, particularly those who worked with the US overseas. Salma, a young woman who spoke at the New American celebration here in the Capitol earlier this month, is a good example. Until months ago, Salma attended the prestigious Kabul Polytechnic University, where she studied civil engineering. Her dreams were shattered when the Taliban took over that country. Her father had worked for the US for 10 years, and she and her grandmother were evacuated and resettled in Gwinnett. They're now building back from scratch. And Salma dreams of resuming her studies and becoming an engineer in Georgia, but the cost of tuition is far beyond her reach. Today, students like Salma are treated as if they are students moving here from Alabama or Florida or other states, and we understand that. But refugees haven't moved here from another state. They have been told to come to Georgia. They have been resettled here, not just by the US government, but with the help of the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia has been an active part of the US resettlement program for almost 50 years and is one of the top states in the nation for refugee resettlement. One reason we have a residency requirement is to prevent out-of-state students from taking advantage of a Georgia education and then turning around and go home. But refugees, by definition, cannot return home. That is a condition of their resettlement. They cannot access an affordable education in Tennessee or in Florida or any other state. Georgia is their only in-state option and the only state that they call home. There is another reason why refugees are not like most out-of-state students. Refugees put down roots in Georgia for generations. They make Georgia their permanent home because Georgia was the one that opens its doors to them when they needed it most. Refugees have suffered enough displacement and separation, and they do not want to be uprooted again. And in fact, the refugee program is designed to connect people with communities where they can put down roots. We see refugee families pass down family businesses, build on their Georgia education to become doctors and civil engineers, and even win elections to become members of this body. HB 932 is a small but smart investment in Georgia students and in Georgia's future. I know this is only for hearing today, but I hope we can consider it for a vote this year to demonstrate once again that Georgia is a leader when it comes to welcoming and supporting our US allies and those in need, and help the thousands who are arriving here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Giannis Abraha, how'd I do? Close? You gotta remember, I speak Southern. Yes, sir.
I can't lived here for a while, so I'm becoming Southern too. So thank you for this opportunity, Chairman. My name is Jonas Abraha. I am the Executive Officer for the Eritrean American Community Association. It's around Claxton, and I'm also the co-chair for CRSA. CRSA is the Coalition of Refugee Service Agencies. It's a group of 21 nonprofit organizations that serve refugee and immigrant communities in Georgia. CRSA members organize work hand in hand with the state of Georgia to welcome our new neighbors. Just like thousands of refugees, I was settled here in Georgia by one of those professional resettlement agencies. From day one, Georgia was my only home state, and America was my only country. Georgia has given me so many opportunities, including my educational opportunity. I went to Georgia. I got my undergrad and my graduate school. Today, I'm giving back to my state and to my country, America, by running a small business and community center. This bill would make it easier for many of us to pursue our educational path right away at arrival and contribute to our state. Therefore, CRSA supports this bipartisan bill. It's a good bill, it's a fair bill, but it's a necessary bill. Thank you.
Ayaz Aman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I will try to be brief. My name is Ayaz Ahmed. I'm the Deputy Director of Programs for the International Rescue Committee here in Atlanta. I come to you today on behalf of the 4 resettlement agencies and the many young Americans, new Americans, including refugees, humanitarian parolees, and SIVs that we work with every day. At the IRC, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of young adults in a program that we called Connect to Success, which works with out-of-school refugee youth and working to connect them with their education and career goals. Over the past 5 years, my experience in this program has taught me that refugee youth and young adults are resilient, determined, and goal-oriented. They're intrinsically motivated and arrive to the US eager for a bright future. After spending years in refugee camps, waiting for their turn to come to Georgia, I have seen, after waiting years to come here, I've also seen firsthand how essential the education and vocational training that our students receive from the university system of Georgia, how essential those are to the long-term economic prosperity of these young people. And this is not just in personal observation. The data from Bureau of Labor Statistics supports this conclusion. As of the 2018 data shows that the unemployment rate for folks who have a bachelor's degree is nearly half, or actually more than half, than those who are here in Georgia who have only a high school degree. Unfortunately, though, it is too often we see young people who are forced to defer their dreams due to structural barriers. One such barrier is the classification of refugee or SIV or now humanitarian parolees as non-Georgia residents, and sometimes even as international students, where instead of being recognized as the permanent in-state residents that they truly are. This difference can translate to an additional $10,000 to $30,000 in yearly tuition for Georgia State University for those that are treated as non-residents or international students, respectively. When a refugee or SIV young adult faces that cost, they defer their dream. And all too often, it's not just for that 1 year, and sometimes longer, that it takes to get their permanent residency card. I'll share with you a story of one such student who arrived and I worked with at the IRC. I'm going to call her Sarah. Sarah came to Georgia with her family as an SIV, special immigrant visa, from Iraq in 2018. She was 21 years old at the time. She was forced to flee Iraq with her mother and her younger sister because her family assisted our soldiers in Iraq. She came here with a high school degree, came to Georgia with the hopes of pursuing multiple careers. She was a very motivated young woman. She wanted to do both pharmacy, IT, and modeling all at the same time. She met all of the requirements to go to an IT program at GSU. However, when she realized the cost that tuition was going to be, she decided that she can't deal with that. She cannot pay that cost. So instead, she started working. She told herself that she would continue next year. Next year came. And when we approached her and we were working with her one-on-one to reapply for school, she hesitated. And she told me that, she thinks that she's missed her chance. She shared that the only option left for her was to work and support her family so that her younger sister could one day achieve her dreams. And I can recall vividly the heartbreak in her voice as a young 22-year-old tells me that her chance is gone, all because that 1 year had elapsed, right? So although this 1 year for some people may seem like it's such a small deal, let's have them wait for 12 months. Nothing's really going to change. We have to understand that there's so much going on in the lives of these young people, and there are so many more responsibilities on them that in 1 year, it really can mean the difference between someone who is going to continue working part-time wage labor positions or someone who's going to be able to pursue her dream and become an IT professional or to become a pharmacist or a model. We know that, so therefore I urge all of you to allow Georgians like Sarah to pursue their dreams. We know that with the access to the right opportunities, these young people can achieve their dreams and forge successful lives right here in Georgia. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. David Roth. I'll just, please, Ms. Roth. I'm going to go to the next person just to let you know you're next, just to help us move along. I'm not rushing you, Ms. Roth. Chris Purdy will be next.
Thank you to the chair and committee members, and thank you for the invitation and opportunity to speak. My name is David Roth. I'm a graduate of the Candler School of Theology at Emory and also the director of Memorial Drive Ministries. MDM is a Christian nonprofit in partnership with the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta that offers a shared space for congregations and nonprofits that serve the diverse Clarkston community. MDM has been supported by over 25 different congregations across Atlanta that support our vision of an end to disconnectedness for refugees. MDM is also a member of the Business and Immigration for Georgia Partnership. In my work, I spoke recently with an Afghan man, an interpreter that I was working with, who shared with me the story of his brother. His brother is a husband and father to 3 children, the oldest of whom was high school age last year. When the Taliban took over Kabul in August, he immediately lost his life savings that he had in the bank, an equivalent of over 55,000 US dollars. All that he had worked for in Afghanistan for years and decades, all that he had planned to invest in his children, who wouldn't, in his children and pass on to them through the gift of education, especially for his daughters who wouldn't have been afforded educational opportunities under the Taliban. He fled Afghanistan, escaping with his life and his family, but without the assets and opportunities that so many of us who haven't lived through war can take for granted. When a man like that, a family like that arrives here, the ability of that child to access in-state tuition is no small thing. Over and over again in my conversations with refugees, I've seen the sacrifices parents make for their children and heard their hopes for their children's education. It's one of the key priorities that comes up over and over again. In addition, the faith community that I'm familiar with here in Georgia too, which has been a vital supporter of education in our state for so long, shares this hope with resettled refugees. We know that war interrupts education and that returning to school is often a critical step in ameliorating the effects of violence. This legislation would allow those whose lives have been uprooted due to persecution to continue their education without further interruption, and do it in a way that I believe will benefit not only my community in Clarkston, but all Georgians and the economy as a whole. My faith teaches me that hospitality is for everyone, the native born and the foreign born alike, and to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And Georgia's faith community has a long history of supporting refugee resettlement and keeping Georgia welcoming in person-to-person, concrete, and practical ways. Thank you to the House Global Talent Study Committee for the important work you have done and the report's recommendations around reducing barriers to admissions to Georgia public colleges, and also the way that HB 932 follows through on that by granting resettled refugees and Afghan allies in-state tuition at Georgia public colleges and universities immediately upon arrival. Thank you.
Chris Purdy, you're next. The next speaker I have is signed up as Jennifer Lee, an associate. So Jennifer, if you're out there.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Purdy, and I'm the Director of Veterans for American Ideals, a project of Human Rights First. I served in the United States Army for 8 years as a combat engineer where I deployed to Iraq, and I now lead a group of about 10,000 veterans and allies around the country that care about the Afghan issue deeply. We worked with our Afghan allies as they were evacuated during and after the collapse of the democratically elected government, and we're driven by a simple premise that America made a promise that we would be there for our Afghan allies when they needed us, and we would leave no one left behind. Over the last 6 months since the fall of Kabul, a quiet army of veterans here in Georgia has been, and across the country, have been working hard to continue to rescue Afghans who've been left behind to the mercy of the Taliban. These folks have spent late nights on their phones and laptops, at kitchen tables, in their offices, working to honor that promise. Since that time, veterans have successfully worked with the federal government to bring over 88,000 Afghans to the United States, with over 1,700 finding a home right here in Georgia. We've now turned our attention from bringing out those allies home from Afghanistan to helping them restart their lives. lives that they had stolen from them when we withdrew from their home and abandoned it to the Taliban. One of the things that has been taken from them both in Afghanistan and abroad is the right to an accessible education. The Taliban has denied them the right to a free education at home. Those who are in refugee camps are denied access to a true education there. And we must give every opportunity to those who have resettled here in Georgia to that education here. We owe them that at least. By allowing our newly resettled Afghan allies to pay the same tuition rate as those who helped them bring them here, we make that dream of education more attainable. Every barrier to education that we remove is one more promise kept, and every helping hand that we offer is one that will wipe away the stain of our national failure. Veterans are looking to our leaders at every level of government to help us and our Afghan allies, and this bill meets that standard of care. It not only helps Afghans in need, but it honors the service of those who brought them here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lee, Jennifer Lee.
Hello. I'm the associate part of Jennifer Lee.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if it was the Jennifer Lee I knew, it was a new one. So yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So
good
just
afternoon.
tell us, I'm sorry, just since I only had associates, just tell us who you are and if you're
Yes,
representing a group.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Crystal Munoz. I am the Immigration Policy Analyst at Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. I would first like to thank the committee for holding this hearing. This is a great piece of legislation and we hope to succeed that it will get to a vote. I'm here today to voice support for House Bill 932. We at GBPI have long supported policies that make post-secondary education more affordable and accessible for students from all different backgrounds. And HB 932 aims to reduce barriers for specific groups of Georgia students, which is SIV holders and refugees who currently have to wait at least a year for in-state tuition. As you know, delaying post-secondary education is very costly to most students, and it can become difficult for them to return and even finish their education. Affordable education is a benefit to students, their communities, and the state. In Georgia, the median income for somebody with a bachelor's degree is 48% higher than somebody with just some college and an associate's degree. And the median income for somebody with a graduate or professional degree is 26% higher than someone with just a bachelor's degree. Communities with higher levels of education also experience less crime, lower incarceration rates, greater participation in school, civic, and religious organizations. This could also be a benefit for Georgia as well, with addressing our labor shortages, as well as combating low enrollment rates in colleges. In closing, we believe that every individual who is qualified and wants to pursue a technical education or pursue higher post-secondary education in Georgia should be able to pursue it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mohubola Musat, help me out here. I apologize. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
Please help me with your name so I'll do better.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm honored that I have the opportunity to stand in front of you and talk about the impact and necessity of House Bill 9032. I'm Hasina Lukuzai, one of the new Afghan resettled refugee in Georgia. I have been in Atlanta for 5 months, and my family relocated here to have a better life here. Most of my family members are here, and all of us very excited and very motivated to get our career back on track. And also all of us are excited that the US will provide what for us, and also especially for me as an Afghan woman. I obtained my bachelor degree in public health from Kabul Medical University in 2017 and start my career in Ministry of Public Health, and later of that in United Nations Children Emergency Fund, or UNICEF, where I led, manage, coordinate, and monitor nutrition development and nutrition emergency programs in 35 provinces of Afghanistan. I hope and I strongly believe my experience and my skill will be an added value to the community and contribute to the healthcare system of Georgia. Having the opportunity to study in one of the United Nations prestigious university was my childhood dreams. So I tried to apply for one of the scholarship by the name of Girls Empowerment Scholarship when I was in grade 7. So that will lead me to obtain my high school in USA. But due to the cultural issue, my parents didn't allow me to come here or to study abroad of my country. So, but now I think my dream will change to reality. As we Afghans suffer a lot, we were working to be able to stand on our own and support our families and contribute to the betterment of our country. But last year, everything changed and destroyed as a nest of birds by a whole storm. With the US evacuation of Afghan refugees to this country, we now find the chance to survive and hope for a secure life. But the opportunity of additional education and building of our professional career, where we can contribute to the growth and economy of Georgia, our second homeland, is an idea of us. Passing House Bill 932 would help many Afghan refugees like me who want to further their education, demonstrate their professional skills to the Georgia workforce, and allow us to be able to break the chain of lack of access to Afghan women. So thanks for consideration of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Salik Sohami. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Martin. Hope you're doing well, members of the committee, and my fellow Georgians. Hope everyone's doing well today. My name is Salik Sohani. I'm a senior community organizer with Georgia Muslim Voter Project, also known as GAMVP. And GAMVP is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that's dedicated to building power for Georgia's diverse Muslim communities through civic engagement and voter registration. And we also serve communities that have been underrepresented in our state for far too long, including our rapidly growing and vibrant immigrant and refugee communities. And I want to begin by expressing our support for HB 932 and applaud Representative Cantrell and also the sponsors of this bill for pushing to extend in-state tuition for our friends who identify as permanent residents, refugees, asylees, special immigrants, and who also hold other lawful classifications. Many of the residents who will benefit from this inclusion are Muslim, and for many of them, especially those who come from the direst of situations, this will leave a legacy that spans generations. It will provide a stepping stone for these individuals to become active and contributing members across Georgia, and additionally create pathways to eventual prosperity for families who have endured conditions worse than we can ever imagine. And as the American-born son of immigrants, I want to thank you. To those of you who may not support this bill or who maybe are on the fence, I'd like to highlight a couple of statistics about our immigrant and refugee friends here in Georgia. Firstly, according to data received by the American Immigration Council in 2018, immigrants made up 10% of Georgia's population, and I'm sure that today that percentage is even higher. And when we think about our workforce, our amazing workforce here in Georgia, 13% of workers here in Georgia are immigrants as well. And so clearly, our immigrant communities are definitely integral to our state. HB 932 provides a prominent sector of our population with increased educational access and therefore promotes economic mobility for our communities. I encourage you all to recognize this bill as an opportunity to further empower our immigrant and refugee families, who, as the data shows, have a positive economic and cultural impact on our state. And lastly, I want to encourage you all to include DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals individuals, within this bill, especially considering that over 21,000 DACA identifying residents live here in Georgia. And considering that these residents have lived in Georgia for the majority of their lives, we believe the same extension should be granted to them as well, as they contribute to making Georgia a more diverse, more inclusive, and a more welcoming place for everyone. Once again, I encourage you all to pass this bill, and I additionally include our DACA identifying individuals and community members within this bill as well. I truly believe that this bill will leave a positive and lasting legacy for all of our families. Thank you, and I'll yield for any questions.
Thank
All right, thank you.
Cindy Battles. Liliana Olivarto is next. I forgot I was supposed to be doing the on deck matter. So Cindy, please. Ms. Battles.
Chairman, I believe that a lot of the points that I was going to make were more eloquently made before and quite possibly made more eloquently after. So as the policy director of the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, first of all I want to do is just throw our enthusiastic support behind the bill. It's nice to speak for a bill, especially when education and the importance of a good education have been the topic of this session. The one thing that I would add as a redacted number of years old individual in the state of Georgia is
we'll allow
going back to what was said earlier about the importance and of the timeliness of this bill, allowing those who would qualify under this bill to go ahead and start getting their education at the in-state tuition. My only ask would be that instead of having a hearing only, you bring this up for a vote as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Liliana. Am I doing that right? Liliana? I don't know if there's 9 there or not. Yes, there is 9. My eyes aren't, well, are you here?
Yes.
No? Okay. Kareem, are you here? Kareem, my eyes are really just fudging up on me. El Hassani, Kareem. There you go. Yes. And then we have 2 people that have signed up. 1 person. Okay. Is that Vayanti Joseph would be next? Yes. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, Flat Stanley, esteemed members of the House Higher Education Committee.
Flat Stanley thanks you, and I don't mean to do that, to take this is a very serious issue, but I do.
No, I have to recognize them.
It means a lot. Thank you very
definitely,
much.
Definitely. And thank you to the rest of the committee who's still here.
We have, I mean, let me say this, we have people that have had to leave the meeting. There are people that have joined online, so I want to do that, and allow me to take a little time away from you. Your bill sponsor sent me a text up here. He was called out on a bit of an emergency situation, so he didn't walk it. Chairman Cantrell would not walk out on you and did not walk on you. He asked the chair's latitude to tend to that emergency. So that's where Chairman Cantrell. Please continue.
Thank you for giving us the time. I mean, I know what we've gone over. My name is Kareem El Hassani. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Georgia chapter of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. CARE is the largest Muslim civil rights organization in the country, and our chapter represents Muslims all across Georgia. I'm here to ask that this committee hold a vote in favor of HB 932. Last summer, our country rushed to evacuate thousands of Afghan allies who had risked their lives for the U.S. mission. These include security officers, interpreters, and others who served alongside our military doing dangerous work, as well as those who stood up and helped the United States advance democracy, education, and equal rights. Today, Georgia is playing a lead role in welcoming our allies. The state has a long and successful history of welcoming refugees dating back decades. In fact, this is something to be proud of. Georgia's resettlement program has been so successful, it has become a model for the nation, with nearly 90% of refugees self-sufficient in just 6 months. This participation in the U.S. refugee program has in return greatly enriched Georgia. People bring skills and talents to the state from other countries around the world. They fill critical workforce gaps in healthcare, food processing, hospitality, manufacturing, literally every sector you can imagine. And just like these newly arrived Georgia residents help enrich our state, it's our responsibility to ensure that we're providing them with the proper resources. HB 932 is a way for Georgia to show its gratitude for their sacrifices and provide them with these resources. Passing this bill is not only the right thing to do for the thousands of Georgians it helps, but it is also good for the state and our economy. For these individuals, Georgia is the only state they have ever called home. Yet many must forego their dreams of higher education because they cannot afford out-of-state tuition. And research shows that if they don't go to school in their first year, many never go to school. and instead they stay in jobs below their abilities. Allowing these motivated students to restart their education without delay is smart business for Georgia, and I urge you to pass this quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joseph.
I'm Vianti Joseph, Political Director at the Asian American Advocacy Fund, and equally excited to see Flat Stanley here today. We have a long family history. I am actually excited to be here today in favor of a bill. It's something that doesn't happen too often. We are here to say that we fully support HB 932 and would encourage this committee to bring it to a vote and look forward to seeing it come to fruition as law. However, we do want to say that as you consider this bill, which is very important, we also request that you take into consideration our DACA recipients and our other undocumented populations who may not be covered under DACA, and really think about them under any legislation that advocates for tuition and tuition equity. In the state of Georgia, our undocumented population is left with literally no choice after their K through 12 education. These students work hard to go on to be tax-paying, productive contributors to society while holding the huge burden of debt due to out-of-state tuition costs or without access to upward economic mobility. In one of the previous bills, we heard all about the large student debt in Georgia, and they're a huge part of that debt. HB 932 is a great step. We love the direction, we love the bill, but would just urge you as you consider tuition and access to education that you expand the benefit to benefit all the undocumented students in Georgia, which in turn will benefit our state greatly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the speakers that we had signed up previously, and I thank everyone for being brief and saying what I hope you wanted to say, but taking into account that we had other speakers, because I believe we got everybody that had signed up. There were some folks, if you notice when the notice went out, I asked that people, sign up, and if you couldn't be here to send your notes in writing, because I absolutely didn't want to chill people to comment online, but I absolutely wanted to get to the folks in the room prior to or before folks were online. We do have in your packets, ladies and gentlemen on the committee, you do have some printed remarks that we asked if they cared to comment remotely, we might not be able to get to them. And as we saw, we have not. And so you have some written remarks in there. Let me just say this, because I know we have a committee waiting to get in here, is, I'm sympathetic to, the comments I've heard and the things I've heard about it. Here's my pause. And I want to be very clear about that. Folks that are coming in and are addressing this bill are treated no better, no worse than folks that move to the state of Georgia from other states. When you move in, if your mom and dad is transferred, your mom or dad is transferred, you move in with your aunt and uncle or your grandparents. When you get to Georgia, you have to wait a year in order to get in-state tuition. So I want to leave that real clear for folks that are listening that may not understand. The refugee population, the folks that have the various visas that we speak to in this bill are being treated no differently than those that come into Georgia from other states. And my struggle is putting those folks in front of other folks that have moved from other places around the world and the United States, whether it be North America or across the planet, to Georgia, putting a group in front. And I'm thankful for the folks that mentioned the students that were in the state covered by DACA, what we refer to as DACA. We addressed that last year in a bill. So that is the struggle we have right now. All these bills we're hearing only today. We have a policy here that I think we've had for 3 years. I think we may have moved from it once on a very single page, a single page bill that was quite simple of a 2 hearing process. So I mean, this is common process for us to spread this before the committee and take it under advisement. So without further comment, and since we have a committee waiting, I thank everyone for your time and look forward to continuing a discussion on this bill and all the others. If there are no further business before the committee, will stand adjourned without objection. See no objection, we're adjourned.